The next country you're born in is Algeria. Algeria is a Muslim-dominated country located in the north of Africa. If you're born as an Arab, your nation makes up 85% of the population. There are also Berber ethnic groups who are indigenous to North Africa, predating the arrival of Arabs and speaking an Afroasiatic language which is quite different than Arabic. Although your homeland is the biggest country in the African continent, 91% of it is empty since most of the 45 million people live in the northern parts of the country because it is mainly desert in the south. As a semi-presidential state, Algeria is regional power thanks to its oil and gas reserves. You Algerians have a developing country which is trying to erase the traces of the French colonialism which caused damages in the past. Just like majority of the countries, how you spend your childhood depends on so many factors here in Algeria as well. Having kids is to be seen as a social norm here, so no one asked your mom or dad whether they truly wanted to become parents or not. Sorry, not sorry. But since you're born anyways, they'll do everything they can, so you would dress better than a neighbor's kid. But also, you gotta beat that kid when it comes to grades. Kids are required to help their parents to do house chores so they can get used to do labor earlier in life. Unfortunately, not all kids have the same opportunities, and Algeria is no exception here. You might need to work in the streets to earn money for the family, especially when there's no father as a head of the family. Eldest kids feel a pressure to work to take care of their mother and siblings. Apparently, kids who are forced to labor cannot get a proper education, so there's a school attendance problem. Also, if you're born out of wedlock, then chances are you'll be discriminated everywhere you go, and some child protecting laws may not even include your rights. The economy of Algeria is fluctuating during the last few decades. Just like every other oil-rich country, poverty is still an issue here as well. So don't get your hopes high that you were born in a country with natural reserves, because apparently big guys in power have it all. About 95% of the all-export earnings come from natural reserves like gas and oil. The government will subsidize certain products so they can keep the wages low. Since the resignation of former President Bouteflika in 2019 after serving in office for 20 years, the GDP has started to increase much faster. The country has the third largest economy in Africa. Around more than 10% of the population is unemployed. Although the current president seems to be competent, the real owners of the country, who are called le pouvoir, don't seem to care. But who are they? Le pouvoir, or in other words, décideurs, are groups of military generals, some officials, and billionaires who rule the country and have more power than the president. So if you're born as one of these deciders' kid, then you'll have the most extravagant lifestyle possible in all Algeria. You'll have opportunities that most of the citizens don't get. It includes studying at private schools for rich kids, going abroad to get a higher education, living in big mansions, and definitely never worrying about money. Chances are you'll have a French-speaking nanny, although being a rich kid can come with its own costs. You might have to choose a profession your wealthy dad wants you to get, and follow a specially designed career path. If your daddy decides that you should work at his company, you'll really have to work super hard. Even if you don't like your job, you'll still get to enjoy all the perks of living a luxurious life and relaxing at your hot tube after work. Your love life can also be complicated. Since life is not a soap opera, you probably won't fall in love with someone poorer than you, but you'll still get married to your family friend's or business partner's son or daughter, so that both families can get richer and richer, because money is never enough. If you're a favorite child, you might know more about politics than anyone else does. Daddy will introduce you to important people from an early age, and that's how you build a trust within the rich people only club. But not everyone can be lucky enough to be born into a rich family. In fact, 1/3 of the nation subsists in poverty. According to the UN, 1.4% of Algerians, which makes up 610,000 people, is multi-dimensionally poor. So what should be your expectations if you're born to broke parents? Since 70% of the poor families live in rural areas, stop dreaming about living in a big city. Apparently, smaller settlements mean less job opportunities. High unemployment rate is the main cause of poverty. Especially young people aged between 16 and 24 have more difficulty finding a decent job. No employer wants an inexperienced worker, and because of this, young people in the labor market can't get a job so they can have some experience. What an irony. Unemployment has a great impact on living conditions and how much money an average person is willing to spend at a marketplace. Also, high cost of housing might lead you and your family squatting in informal settlements. The 27% gap between the poor and the rich is obviously felt more by people in poverty. Being a woman in Algeria comes with many challenges. In some families, daughters can be seen as a burden since they don't work and make money as sons. Parents pay attention to raise their girls to become a good housewife so they can marry them off. Therefore, you'll have to help your mom do house chores more than your mom helping you with homework. That doesn't mean that there's not any family that wants their daughter to get educated. Algeria has so many smart and successful female doctors, lawyers, and teachers. You can be one of them too if you study hard. However, keep in mind that women have 2 times more unemployment rate as men. The main reason for this can be husbands who don't let their wives work. Your husband is probably going to be someone your parents already know and introduced you to. In your country, dating with whomever you want before marriage is not socially acceptable for women. Unfortunately, violence against women is still a problem here. Verbal harassment by men happen on a daily basis. Strange thing about this is that even if not you, but some women think that domestic violence is acceptable. Percentage of such women is more than 50%. This shows how patriarchy can mess up a society's mind, but let's not forget the fact that there are some open-minded families too. But what if you were born as a man in Algeria? Even though you'll have more opportunities and independence, there are some social rules that you must obey. Since you're offered more, you're also expected to provide more both for your parents and family. Military service is mandatory for men aged over 19. If you're unhappy about hard manual labor jobs, compulsory military service, being the only one in family who works, don't forget that it was men who created this system. As an Algerian man, there's a high possibility that you'll be a misogynist who keep blaming women for literally everything. But don't worry, law enforcement system came up with a family code that requires women to obey their husbands. You may marry up to 4 wives and can divorce any of them anytime you want. However, your wives can request a divorce only under certain circumstances. Officially, women are equal to men. However, it's hard for an unmarried woman to function in a male-oriented society. However, some educated men respect and treat women well, while still enjoying privileges of being a man. Hope you're at least one of such men. Being a queer person in Algeria is definitely much harder than most other places. LGBTQ people face legal charges and social discrimination not experienced by non-queer people. Homosexual act between 2 men or 2 women is punishable with imprisonment and a fine. The Algerian laws say that it's against the nature and Islamic faith. Queer people might fall victim to hate crimes, and police often join in on the attacks or turn a blind eye. Examples of hate crime include stoning and murder. The law doesn't accept human rights of LGBTQ+ persons. If you're queer, you'll have to keep it a secret from everyone you know. Finding your community will be very hard since there are no gay-friendly establishments. As gender expression is banned and social discrimination is rampant, very few gay people live openly. However, it's not totally impossible to find an ally since, according to a BBC research, 26% of Algerians think that homosexuality should be accepted and respected. Before we explore different aspects of life in Algeria, let's talk about people who once lived here and had to leave. Pieds Noirs. Pieds Noirs are descendants of French and other European people who were born in Algeria during the French colonial period. Majority of them left the country after Algeria gained independence in 1962. They were supporting the French colonialism and made up the wealthy and influential part of the Algerian society. They dominated the country's industrial, cultural, and political institutions. Although most of them went back to their origin country, there are still around 1,000 or more Pieds Noirs living in Algeria. Those who returned had a hard time getting used to the current French culture and kept longing for Algeria. As a Pied Noir, if you're interested in knowing more about your story and those who stayed in Algeria, keep watching the video because later on, I'll recommend a book about it. If you're living in a city, it can be a positive experience. Algerian cities have colorful streets, beautiful old buildings, and mosques everywhere. Apparently, every city differs from each other, but problems are similar in each one. The main downside of living in a city, without a doubt, is public transportation. There aren't enough amount of buses for city dwellers. metro system exists only in the capital city, Algiers. Although it was planned to build a metro system in another big city called Oran, the project has been postponed for more than a decade now. However, tramway systems, including aerial tramways, take a significant part of transport in some cities. Big cities have naturally more job opportunities than small settlements. Most people in the cities get to learn French alongside with Arabic, which can increase your chances of getting hired. However, salaries are low, even though prices for essential food items, gas, and electricity are quite reasonable. Things like buying a house or car can be exceptionally expensive. Also, you won't be able to find different options of processed foods, snacks, or ready meals. Despite the fact that Algeria is one of the most developed countries in Africa, city life can be a bit boring due to the lack of cultural events. However, you can still find nightclubs and bars in big cities. Since it's a Muslim-dominated country, you can hear the call of Islamic prayer at certain times a day. As in most Muslim countries, Algeria also have their weekends on Friday and Saturday. It's because on Friday, Muslims should go to mosques to pray instead of praying at home. Most shops may also be closed during the weekend. If you're born in an Algerian village, life conditions might be a bit harsher. Although cities also have water supply cuts, it occurs much more often in the countrysides. In some regions, you'll get access to water every 10 days, and the lack of clean groundwater makes it no easier. As a big country that it is, actually 91% of it is empty, and it's due to the hot and harsh deserts all over Algeria. Not only that, but only 4% of all lands is cultivable, and it means less job opportunities for village inhabitants. Although sheep farming is quite common, dairy industry is not very developed either. All these factors explain why people in villages suffer from poverty more than people in cities. Just like in most countries, villagers in Algeria are also better at keeping old traditions alive. You'll see and have the most traditional weddings here, with lots of colorful decorations, dresses, and food. Oftentimes, bride has to change her clothes almost every hour as a sign of extravaganza. In Algerian culture, groom's family gifts all kinds of jewelry to bride, and bride's family is responsible with giving furniture, electrical appliances, utensils, etc. to the newly wedded couple. Generally, bride moves in with groom and his parents. In countrysides, getting married is extremely important. Families often fall in debt after their kid's wedding. So what's for sure is that village life will make you a tough one. Just like in most North African countries, your country is also caught between traditional Islamic culture and modern Western influences. As old people prefer to keep and live by old traditions, young people seem to be eager to discover different cultures with Western movies and songs. More isolated Amazigh ethnic groups are better at distancing themselves from these conflicting pressure and stick to their old traditions. But no matter what, Islamic values still play a huge role on daily life choices. Even though it's not obligated by law, some women wear veil when in public. Marriages are typically arranged by parents, so you'll probably get married to someone your family chose for you. Since Islam is the main religion, most public holidays and celebrations are Islamic festivals, such as the end of Ramadan, the birthday of Prophet Muhammad. Independence Day is also a very important day for you Algerians. These holidays are often celebrated with foods made from couscous, meat, chicken, etc. Algerian food is the most preferred by people, but Western-style dishes such as pizza or burger are also getting popular. As for a beverage, coffee prepared in a Turkish style is often served in social gatherings. Let's learn a bit about your country's history. Algeria started to become a French colony in 1830 after being nominally part of the Ottoman Empire for a long period of time. After 1903, France controlled the entire country. European settlers of Algeria who moved here were becoming more powerful and wealthier. They would own cultivable lands, and most of the time, indigenous people would work for them for a living. After the Second World War, where some Algerians fought in the French army, local people started to debate and question the country's situation. Algerian War of Independence started in 1954 when the National Liberation Front, FLN for short, launched attacks throughout Algeria. It was estimated that between 350,000 and 1 million Algerians lost their lives during the war. However, negotiations led to a ceasefire between France and the FLN in 1962. Meanwhile, the people managed to get their freedom, and France declared Algeria independent on July 3, 1962. However, it didn't immediately stop the country's social and economic challenges. Political chaos was still continuing, which led to several coups d'états, civil war, and military rules. In 1999, Abdelaziz Bouteflika became a president while the military still running the country behind the scenes. However, the military started to lose influence, while Bouteflika gained more and more power. After 20 years in office, Bouteflika resigned in 2019 as a result of nationwide protests. Following the presidential election that took place the same year, Abdelmajid Tebboune was elected president. He also won a second term in September 2024. If you want to learn more about Algeria, here are some books to read. What the Day Owes the Night by Yasmina Khadra is a beautiful novel about Algeria as a French colony during Independence War, and much more. I highly recommend you to read it. The second book is called The Bookshop in Algiers by Khaoudar Adimi, where you'll read about famous French-Algerian writers such as Albert Camus while being lost in a bookstore. The third book is non-fiction and only available in French for now and tells the story of European settlers of Algeria who chose to stay there and didn't move to Europe. It's called Ni valise, ni cercueil by Pierre Daume. Although every citizen's experience can differ from each other, now you have the general idea about how your life would be like if you were born in Algeria. If you have any book, movie, or song recommendations about Algeria, please let us know in the comments.